Hey friends, it is Connor, CEO of Phin, and I was having a couple of conversations with some MSPs, and I was also doing a little bit of writing on this topic that you see right here on your screen. What are the three essential parts of a security awareness program? So I figured I might as well make a quick video explaining some of the pieces and why they are those pieces and how they work together. There's also going to be a link somewhere in relation to this video. If you're watching this, you'll have a link somewhere to a blog where I go a little more in depth on this if you wanted more depth. But there are three essential parts. That is assessments, trainings, and buy-ins. And I can go into these in a little more depth some other time. But right now, so for specifically assessments, they need to be continuous. If continuous assessments, what I mean by that is you don't just assess a person or a group of people once a year and you give them 1,000 questions. You know, if you're ever in college or you ever took the SATs, it's not a fun experience. And so when we have continuous assessments, when we break up the learning into smaller, more manageable chunks, and when we break up the assessments into smaller, more manageable chunks, it becomes easier to remember and also less of a burden, if that makes sense. The second, and sometimes what I see as not happening in a lot of companies or in a lot of programs that end up getting deployed, is this assessments need to be relevant. If people don't believe that what you're testing them on is actually relevant to what they need to do in their job, they're going to check out, right? They're not going to want to complete the test. They're not going to care about the training after the fact anyway. And generally, it just leads to a horrible experience. You ended up paying for that assessment to get delivered, and the assessment didn't really have a lot of value in the employee's eyes. And if it doesn't have a lot of value in the employee's eyes, they'll typically make that a reality. And the third, and sometimes I see this getting done, not done as well, is easily understand outcomes. When you provide an assessment, it needs to be very clear what went wrong and what went right. What could the employee have done if they didn't do it? And what did the employee do right? Specifically, what did they do right if they ended up passing the assessment? This can not only be in the form of like quiz questions on the back of trainings, but even with phishing simulations I see is when an employee gets phished, they don't even know it. It's like if an employee doesn't know that they failed a test, or let alone how they failed it, how could they possibly be expected to improve? How could we as an industry expect them to improve at all if we're not telling them what they could improve upon? So it's very important that they easily understand the outcomes. For trainings specifically, the trainings just need to be relevant. So I said this for the quiz questions and for the assessments as well, but the training itself needs to be relevant first. Only by providing relevant training can you then provide relevant assessments, right? Because the training you give them needs to inform the type of assessments you give them. You can't separate the two completely. Second is it needs to be engaging. Now this is a kind of a double-edged sword. There's two ends of the spectrum here. One is a very bland presentation that is not engaging at all and that people typically hate to go to. They hate to go into that day of work where they have to sit in a 4-hour-long lecture teaching them about things they don't view as important. That's like one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is forced enjoyment. I've never had this happen, but I've heard a lot of people complain about what they call forced enjoyment. Basically, this is training. Now, it can be educational and entertaining at the same time, but if you go beyond, if you go really far into the entertainment piece, it just becomes forced enjoyment. Not everybody's going to want to do this, and sometimes it feels like you're trying to make them enjoy it on your behalf, which is never good, and then often leads to them not engaging with the training anyways. So it accomplishes the opposite effect. The third is it needs to get delivered often. So I mentioned this for assessments as well. So they're kind of, trainings and assessments go hand in hand in terms of if you give training, you give assessments typically. So when you deliver training often, you can deliver it in shorter, more manageable chunks as well, which means that people are more likely to engage with it. Even in today's day and age, it is hard for people to sit down for an hour, let alone, heck, 30 minutes to learn about a topic that they did not care to learn about before they sat at their desk that morning or sat in front of their computer that morning. So if you deliver training often and you make it somewhat engaging and it's relevant to their lives, to their daily lives, the work that they have to do, you can end up actually engaging them in the process, and they can end up feeling, these employees can feel supported by the trainings that get delivered as well. And the third, definitely the last, but not the least. This is the most important piece, and this is where I see a lot of programs fall short, is the buy-in. So there are three specific places you need buy-in from in order for a security awareness program to work. One, decision makers. Sometimes this is the C-suite. It depends upon the maturity of the organization you're building these programs in. Sometimes it is the HR department. Sometimes it is the security team itself who is responsible for delivering and getting the buy-in for these security awareness programs. But whatever you need, the people in charge of making these decisions and creating and managing this program, they need to be bought in that they're doing something they view as valuable. Second, probably the most important part of the buy-in is the employees themselves. If employees are not bought in to the program, if they don't understand the importance, if they don't understand how this could positively impact their lives, if the employees don't understand how this could make them more secure, how they could act more securely, then you're not going to get the results that you want. And the results that we want, to be clear, is typically a change in behavior. We want people to act more securely than they did the previous day, the previous week, the previous month, so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into how you measure that right now, but just so you know, that's the goal. And the third is, if the security team are not the decision makers in this scenario, you need your security team bought in as well. Why? Because your security team is almost certainly responsible for the outcomes of this program and almost certainly responsible for managing this program. So you need buy-in from the people who made the decisions, the people who manage the programs, and the people who are a part of the program. You need buy-in on all three of those levels. So this was just kind of a quick video to explain this, but I have a full blog that probably linked below, I don't know, maybe left, right, up, down, that goes through these and why these are the three essential parts and how you could potentially go about accomplishing these three areas. So if you have any questions, reach out, Connor at phinsecurity.com, or just reach out to us on LinkedIn, send us a DM on Facebook, whatever you want. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you soon.